Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to do a long-awaited review of War of the Ring. This is a game from Armies and by Roberto Demiglio. I'm mangling the names, but trust me, these are good guys. War of the Ring is the consummate. This is the second edition. I promised someone I would review this probably a month ago. Then I ended up getting distracted by Middle-earth Quest, and now I'm back, and I'm finally ready to talk about War of the Ring. This is a high-level recreation of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and it features pretty much everything and more. And let me stop talking, and let's just get to playing it. Okay, what comes in War of the Ring? What doesn't? You got this beautiful map. It's two pieces put together to form Middle-earth in all of its glory. Each side has decks of cards and two different types of cards that they're going to take during each turn. They will give you special abilities, which we'll cover later. Same thing for the shadow side and the free peoples. Dice, everyone has dice. It's a dice-driven game. And then you have, of course, your regions of the map. There's towns. There's settlements. Settlements that actually, some of which are fortified, which makes them harder to attack for good reason. You've got your Sauron, and your southern eastling forces, and those appear here already. And then on the other side, you got dwarves, elves, Gondor, Northmen, and Rohan, each with their corresponding units that get placed all over the map. You've got Shadow Box. This is when you're hunting for the ring, because this is a two-phase game. One is you've got the military aspect. The other is you're trying to get the ring to Mordor, and that's a whole different other half of the game, a significant portion indeed. You have all of the fellowship, some of which can break off during play. Otherwise, they all start together. One of these guys is going to be the leader, and in this case, it's Gandalf the Grey, who's currently the leader of the companions, and they have their own movement rates and leadership ratings and special abilities. Lots of things have lots of special abilities here. It is the way. You've got the hunt. When you're hunting, if Sauron catches up to the companionship, the fellowship, then they take one of these tiles that can do bad things. It almost always does bad things. And that's really it for what comes in it. Everything else is just geared towards things that happen as a result of the dice and the card play and the units on the map. In addition, I do have War of the Ring Lords of Middle-earth. I won't be playing with that. It's out of print right now. And so this is going to be a quick vanilla view, but it had some interesting ideas because you have rings, and those rings are used in the base game to be able to change a die to a roll, but the free peoples, once they do that, have to give it to the shadow people, who then can use it again for their own purposes before it is discarded from play. Also, you have different possibilities for having different people in the companionship. It basically goes away from the iconic book flow of who's there and who's not. A lot of different possibilities in this game that you can incorporate, as well as a little more of an interesting presence of Gollum. And then you have Warriors of Middle-earth. That is the other expansion, and that actually adds different factions, and over time these are going to grow. These are usually represented as cards, just card play in the base game. Here you instead transform them into actual armies and units that will aid and assist you on, depending on which side you're on, over time. And so you've got that kind of nice deal. They have their own custom dice and whatever. Again, these are going to be what you have, but I'm not going to show that in the base game simply because they're not really easily available anyway. Although in a future time, if there is a chance that these are going to get reprinted, or we're going to have War of the Ring 9th edition, then that might be a good thing to add to kind of show you what's different in Lords of Middle-earth and Warriors of Middle-earth. But that's it. That's what comes in the box. Now let's talk about how you play this game. Okay, as the shadow player, our objective is to either conquer enough of Middle-earth to bend them to our will, or corrupt the fellowship by having them corrupted all the way up to the 12 marker, at which point both of those are instantaneous victories for the shadow player. For the free peoples, on the other hand, they have one job, and they need to do it, and that is to get that ring to Mordor. Nothing else will suffice. Their military aspects are simply mostly delaying actions, stalling actions, just doing enough, biding enough time for the Fellowship to make it down to Mordor. And this is what happens here. The Fellowship started here, but through much clever card play, they went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They made it to the eastern Mirkwood, and that's where they are now. Fellowship track. So that's kind of the setting of the stage. We're not going to start from scratch because it's going to take way too long to get into the point where you can see a battle, where you can see things going on, etc. This is not a playthrough. This is just what's going on in the game in case it piques your interest to play. So what's happening is every player starts off with cards, and these cards do different things. Like if you can use actions, you can use a dice to that matches this in order to do this action if you don't want to do whatever else the dice lets you do. And then in battle, everything has something in battle and everything non-battle. So right now we have 6 cards. That's the maximum hand size that we can have for each player, because we played along and I clearly haven't done a lot with events. So what happens is, recover our action dice. You get 4 to start with for the free peoples, but because I have upgraded Aragorn, he gets an extra die. It's 5. Same thing here. We have 7 usually for the shadow player, but because Saruman has been activated in Orthanc, we have 8 dice. Now the first thing they do is you recover your dice and then draw 2 cards from the deck, and then you look at them and go, hey, I like that. Hey, I like that too. Then you have to decide, if you have 6, what to get rid of. So we're just gonna, I'm just showing you, so I'm doing this. Yes, I would discard the others, but yay, so we draw 2 and go, hey, which do I want to keep? Normally I would look and pay more attention, but each of these cards has different conditions to play it. Like, play if the Fellowship is revealed, and they're not. The Fellowship is either hidden or revealed. If they're hidden, it's on this side. If they're revealed, it's on this side. Being revealed is bad. It means that a lot of bad things can happen to the Fellowship, and most of that involves corruption or really nasty things. Okay, so we drew our cards, and then you can change the guide. You can always change a guide. Each of these has a different special ability as the guide. Remember, these are your, you know, these: Boromir, Legolas, Gimli, Pippin. Yep, all the friends. Even, and yes, there's even Gollum in here somewhere. But you can change the Fellowship. You can only change it to someone who's got the same value here. Right now everyone else is 2. Gandalf and Strider are the 2 you're usually using. We're going to keep Gandalf the Grey there as part of this Fellowship, and this represents all of the Fellowship. They're moving together, etc. We're not changing that. Now the shadow player gets to decide how many of these he wants to allocate for hunting. Now hunting is basically whenever the Fellowship player moves and tries to move the Fellowship, he has a chance to try and find them. And we're going to put 2 dice here, and that stays here. If there was ever a time where a movement was done in a previous turn, there's always you have to put at least 1 dice here if the Fellowship had moved prior in the last turn. So basically it's just a way to make sure that Sauron stays honest with his hunt for the ring, and he does. And you can actually add as many dice here as you have Fellowship companions in the group. You can be in the group or out of the group. As long as the Fellowship folks are here, they're all one group. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dice could be used. If they split off, which they likely will do during play, then you roll less dice if you're Sauron, but also they never get to come back to the Fellowship. Like, this is just, if you've read the books, you know how this goes. So anyway, so that's what we got. So now we roll the dice. And we roll the dice, move our mice, no one gets hurt. Okay, so we've rolled the dice and we have these. This is what we've come up with. Oh yeah, look at that. All right. Now we have these 5, and then we have these 5. Look at that. So there's a lot of opportunity here. Now the one thing is, this eye means this has to go in the hunt box. So you might end up having more dice in the hunt box anyway, based on that. And then There you go. Everyone starts using these dice to trigger actions on the board. That's literally the end of the... Once these 5 dice are done, that's the end of the turn. I've literally showed you what happens every single turn. So everything else that happens interesting happens because of these dice. Now, the free peoples go first, and then the shadow player is... During play, if the free people have less die than the shadow player, they can choose to pass in order to let the dice get evened, and then the free peoples goes again. So what do? Well, each of these dice represents something a little different. You've got that here. Let me show you. So if you've got a character dice, you can do things like move armies that have your leaders in them. So for example, we've got Aragorn here, so he could use that dice to move his entire army here somewhere else. He's not going to do that because you're not going to abandon Minas Tirith. Sorry, we're not deviating that much from the lore. So you can do that, or you can attack with one army. So as long as you have these, whatever a character can do, you can kind of manipulate here. You can play a character event card. Again, we were talking about how these match up here. Like, hey, if Gandalf the White is in play, which he's not. Play if Gandalf the White is in play, which he's not. File of Gadriel. Ooh, you can add hunt tiles. That's cool. All right, and so you can see that's how that goes. Armies are different. Armies, and this is because of the flag. Let's just turn that into a flag and show you. Where's the flag? Yeah. Okay. Oh wait, that's right. It's always duplicated here. Never mind. Yeah, on the shadow player it's a little different, but when you have a flag, that lets you move armies even if they don't have leaders. Now, leaders for the shadow player are the Nazgul and the Witch King. The leaders for the free peoples are basically whatever horsemen you have here, as well as the companions. All right, so we can attack with an army, play an event card, etc. Muster lets us do one of two things. Either we can move something down that track to try to get people at war, which will help us out because then we can start mustering units, or you can muster new units, or you can play an event card. So we're going to do that. Let's do that. Let's go here, and that will be our first. All right, so we're going to muster the elves. They're now at war. This is good. This means that the elves can now start recruiting units, whereas they couldn't before naturally muster units and without using an event card. So yay, so they're done, and that gets set to the side. Now it's Sauron's turn, and Sauron's like, well, what am I going to do? He has the same options. He has the same muster. You've got the armies, etc., etc. We're going to... He can use one of these to move an army with a leader, and he's going to use his army die. That's what he's going to do. The army die lets him move 1 or 2 armies. So what's he going to do? He's going to move all of these units here to prepare to attack Lorien. And then he can move 1 other unit, so he's going to move these over here to try to get them closer to the battle lines. All right, and that's it. That's what he's done. Okay, now we're back to our good friends here. And what do? We have a Will-o'-the-Wisp. Kidding. We have a Will of the West, and this is a wild card. It can be used for anything. So we'll hold that one off for the side. Now we're going to use this to do something that we can do, which is either move all companions. Nope, we're going to move the Fellowship. So what we're going to do is we're going to set that here, and we're going to move the Fellowship 1 space. Now this is a little tricky thing to get your head around. This is the last known location of the Fellowship. When you move the Fellowship, you do not move the last known location. You move the Fellowship track up, and that says somewhere within 2 spaces that Fellowship actually is. But you don't need to define where that is. Sauron and the Shadow player is going to use this location to try to get there and try and hunt you from there. And so you like to have this this is in like a settlement or some friendly location. It's usually better. But if not, then this is the last known location. So with that being 2, it could be here, could be here, could be here, It could be a lot of places. You just don't know, and neither does Sauron. And so that's kind of the interesting sauce there. And you'll notice that you can go a long ways. You can be moving the Fellowship and having this stay here a long time. If it gets to 9, you're seriously talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and stuff. There are some rules about traversing or getting to or through places where you can be more detectable, but in general that's it. Now, because that movement was made, we moved it up. You're going to move no matter what. We now know we have 3 dice, so we're going to roll 3 on a 6. Oh no. If you didn't roll a 6, nothing would happen. Sauron would be like, man, I still don't know where you are. Come out, wherever you are. But because we have a 6, it's now revealed. At the start of a turn, it is possible for the Fellowship to just declare and say, I'm just going to say I'm here, and then go ahead and move without any repercussions. But because they're out there and because they were revealed, some things happened. Now they've been revealed. Now they have to go 2 spaces, and they have to draw a dreaded tile. And this one says, ooh, so basically, for every die, you take a corruption. 1, 2, 3. Ouch. And you're revealed. I should have waited on that. The tile can say whether it's revealed or not, but it is. It's revealed. Now, you can do some things to mitigate. Like there's some cards here. Look at this. So this is a saving grace. After the player draws a hunt tile, I can discard this to reduce the damage by 1. Gonna do that. So I do that, reduce the damage by 1. I can also choose to get rid of some Fellowship members to reduce it as well, and then whatever's left I have to take as damage. So I'm not doing real well, not at all. You can see that I have basically now revealed my party. It's now I can have lots of things can happen, lots of forces can start coming up. Now the companions can shift through. They don't get blocked by enemy movement. It just they get hounded and harassed much more by enemy movement. So the companions can slip through for the most part and just blaze through whether you've got enemies there or not. But anyway, so that's that. So that wasn't a good idea. So now I'm just going to cut to the chase. I mean, you're literally seeing most of everything. We're going to do this to do an attack. I want to show you how attacks work. So Sauron uses that, and we attack. Okay, it's time for combat. I'm going to show you how combat works. Unfortunately, I don't have... It's supposed to come with 5. I can't find my 4th dice. This makes me mad, so I've ordered some awesome dice on Etsy. This game's worth it, but in the meantime, I'm going to have to just play it by ear. So, combat time. Dun, da, da, da. So, the first thing we do in combat, we're gonna have the shadow army is going to attack from here into Minas Tirith. It is time. The battle has begun. So, our defenders are here. Our attackers are here, and this is how it's gonna roll, pilgrims. First off, the shadow player can play a card, one card. Whoa. Deadly Strife. I like that one. Sauron ain't pulling no punches. Both armies add 2 to all dice on their combat roll. And leader reroll. Holy smokes. Wow. That's powerful. So then the Free Peoples have a chance to respond. Not doing that. Wow, subtract 1 from all dice on the combat roll. Add 1 to all dice in the combat. Like, this is bad. The thing is, when you lose units as the Free Peoples, they're gone forever. And our first attack here, we have a chance. If we wanted to, we could go and we could say, you know what, all of these people are going to move into the settlement. But that means that Minas Tirith, the region, would get overwhelmed. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to go into there yet. I need something that's going to negate. It's going to negate things. So we're going to play... Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to say, subtract 1 from all dice on the combat roll of the shadow player. Alright, that's going to make for some cool stuff. So basically, both armies add 2 to their rolls. And but then we subtract 1. So Sauron adds 1 to his roll, and we add 2. I kind of like that. That cool. Okay, so now that we've done that, now we get to figure out the strength, and you can have up to 5 dice, 5 strength. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Every unit, whether it's an elite one or not, is going to get 5, is going to contribute 1 strength to the combat, up to 5. If you have more armies, you can sustain 5 for longer, but you don't get to like roll 10 dice. So we have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Leaders and companions don't count for the army strength, so there's 4 against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we're gonna roll Sauron's first, and he's gonna roll 5. 1, 2. Okay. Oh wait, what did I? Yeah, let's just say I did it. So then, we add 2 minus 1 is 1, so that's a 3, that's a 2, that's a 5. What's interesting here, I may or may not have done that right, but work with me, is that on the first attack against a settlement that's fortified, only 6s count as hits. So this is not good. If this was a second or third turn, the 5 and the 6 would count as hits. But in this case, we're going to go with 5. And again, I don't remember that last roll I did. This 4 dice thing is, I'm really going to buy new dice, is going to get you nothing. So 1 hit so far for Sauron. Let's just finish Sauron. Now Sauron has 2 rerolls, and this says that you get to add 2 to all rerolls. And because this isn't a combat roll, this is a leader reroll, so we're going to add 2 to this. Oh man, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, still didn't get a hit. Whoo, dodged a bullet. All right, so now it's the free. So 1 hit is going to be assessed to the free peoples. Now we're going to roll for the fellowship, or the free peoples. 4 dice, 4 units. 5, 4. And they hit from inside out. They're going to hit on a 5 or a 6. So that's a hit. And because of this card that adds 2 to both for the combat, so this becomes a 6, which is awesome. So that's a hit. This becomes a 4, which is not a hit. That becomes a 3, which is not a hit. So that's okay. But we have Aragorn's 2 rerolls plus 3 plus 1 is 4. So we can re-roll up to 4 dice. In this case, we're going to re-roll 2. Oh, man. Look at that. So 4 to 1. So 4 units are gone. That was an excellent stand. And 1 unit's gone, and gone forever, from Gondor. And so we have now wrapped up battle for our forces here. Now, what happens after the turn is over? Well, a couple things can happen. One, Gondor, or the shadow player can say, you know what, I'm not liking these odds, I quit. If they don't, if they want to keep going, they have to convert 1 elite unit to a regular unit in order to continue to fight. Right now, they're gonna quit. Like, no, I'm happy. I gotta bring more of these guys in. That was a bad turn. On the other hand, if things had gone poorly for the free peoples, they could choose to go into the stronghold, and that is going to help them. It would allow Minas Tirith to be taken over as a region, but it's besieged. They don't get the points for it yet because they besieged Minas Tirith, but they haven't overwhelmed it. And the walls of the strongholds do make it so that you have to roll 6s in order to be able to get some to conquer and take over. If at any time all of the armies are gone, and that's the blue units, like the leaders and stuff, then everybody is gone, like on this side. And the same thing, if you defeat this army, but the 2 Nazgul there, they go back and they have to be remustered. And that's that. That's basically an example of play. There's not a ton left that's specific to the core gameplay. Everything else is just kind of like part of the card play, lots of special conditions, lots of things going on. Honestly, like, there's so much, we have such sights to show you, but definitely check out some of the very detailed gameplay elements. One of the great things about a game this old and yet still this awesome, oops, I gave it away, is that there are a lot of playthroughs. There's even tournaments. There's all kinds of ways to really see this game fleshed out. I just showed you a few things to give you a smattering of what War of the Ring offers. Now let's get into my final thoughts. Okay, final thoughts on War of the Ring. It's a lot to live up to with War of the Ring. There just is. There's a lot to live up to. And I would say that if you aren't a Lord of the Rings fan or aware of much of it at all, much of the genius and brilliance will not be realized. I'm in the cons section, the things that cons that might even be mystifying to you, kind of the way the game lays out on why this isn't just a full-on battle, what's with this side quest that's a big quest, what's with the hunting thing and all that. Unless you're fully immersed in the lore, coming to this with blind eyes, it's going to be it's fully functional game, but a lot of this is just not going to be necessarily immediately clear to you why you're doing what you're doing. The other thing is there are strategic trends in this game that tend to be the norm. You're going to follow in principle a lot of the ways that the books go when you're trying to get people convinced there's battle. You're going to meet in about the same iconic places. So a lot of the areas of the map are not necessarily going to be in focus for a lot of your plays. But that doesn't mean it's restricted to that. To take that con into a plus, surprises can abound, and the card play and the dice play can require some divergence from your pre-planned initiatives. In fact, there's some really good videos, if you watch now, of some tournaments going on where people have taken some very unorthodox ways and have pulled them off. So the rule book it's a little dated in its approach. It's not bad, it's not great, it's kind of middle of the road. There's lots of details that kind of get lost in the text, where I'm used to examples now more than we used to have, but it's not even remotely as wretched as some of the modern playbooks I've had to slog through this year for far less ambitious titles. So, when you think of it also, beyond that, even if it wasn't great to begin with, there's 10 years worth of improved player aids and player support. You're not at a loss here in any regard and being pampered for your purchase. The other thing is, the game that came out after War of the Ring was Battle of the Five Armies, which took this high scope and reduced it down to the Battle of the Five Armies, really sort of narrowed in with that microscope. And there, in the successor, there was a lot of really interesting combined arms, crucial play style. Like you wanted to mix different groups and whatever. Here units are units, whether they come from the south, whether they come from Sauron or Saruman. The units are you have to be careful only in that they all have to be at war in order for it to make offensive moves. But other than that, you're not dealing with sort of like nuances the way you are with Battle of Five Armies. That's okay. There's enough going on that we're not going to worry about it. And then the other thing is game length. If you're thinking you're going to pull off, this game in a couple hours, generally speaking, you might, but don't count on it. This is an afternoon, and at least an afternoon affair. And honestly, it's not a downside or an upside. It's just a point of reference. Don't bring this to Denny's, to try and play it with, your grandkids kind of thing. So that's it. That's the cons. Now let's get into the pros. This is Lord of the Rings in every single way. It is a testament that in no other universe would much of the gameplay or the things you're doing be very sensible. It's just the game and what you're doing and how you're doing is so fused and so embedded with the Lord of the Rings that you are playing Lord of the Rings. You are just doing it. It's all fused into one degree of separation. It is perfect in its realization of the Lord of the Rings. It's perfect map. The large, sweeping, grand, but not over-cluttered areas on the board for housing critical units. They feel full. When you see your armies and they're crunched up in there, you're like, that's a mighty horde. Perfect units. They're large enough that fitting them into the small regions can be tough, but also it is visually reminiscent of the hopeless hordes. Eventually I will replace them with custom minis over time and paint them, but still the sweeping feel of the amassed armies and the impending doom it's mighty. There's perfect asymmetry. The free peoples are motivated in every respect as they appear in the books with sort of surprise hooks and gutsy, plucky abilities. The shadow player is every bit empowered and engorged with powerful opportunities. I think the only game that's equally as thematic and indicative of the Lord of the World asymmetry is Lord of the Rings Confrontation, which you can play in 15 minutes. But in both of those, there's just this perfect melding of the all-encompassing war balanced against this race to the doom. Yes, war occurs, but it's not central but pivotal, with the ever-present possibility that you're going to get overrun and Sauron will just beat you militarily. There's also the game within the game of the political track, with the iconic resistance to committing to war, even when war is so very clearly going to happen. In the books and the movies, like the books and the movies, you're going to be yelling like at these like various characters, like, get with the program. Your literal existence depends on it. How can I convince you that things are bad or happening and stuff? And this kind of replicates that too with that political track. The Shadow player has massive units, but they're fodder, and they're generally inaccurate as a stormtrooper in a sandstorm. The rerolls and the rolls can be brutally unsatisfying, or it can be absolutely satisfying. But most of the time, they're unsatisfying. I mean, these are dumb units that make sense. But they last forever. Like, if you lose one, you just throw one back in later. You can keep going. The Free Peoples have more, as natural defenders, more capabilities of holding off more with less. It's a pain, though, because when you lose units as the Free Peoples, you lose them forever. That's bad. Sieges, fortifications, the sortie system all works beautifully. It mimics, actually, some popular war games, even in today's contemporary setting. Because it works. Your mind's eye can see the Free Peoples hold up just like in Helm's Deep, holding off against overwhelming odds. Can it work? Can it not? There's this agony when the fortifications fall, and the sheer joy, depending on what side you're on, where you're like, you survived yet another turn. Now, combat might be rather simple in the end. It's literally roll, re-roll, meet a threshold. It's not as nuanced as other games who've arrived later, but it works here because, the combat is just one of a lot of facets of this game that are bringing together the whole picture of Lord of the Rings in action. The whole game it's already an epic journey. This is the sweet spot of balancing an iconic and lengthy saga and not getting caught up in the bog of corpse candles of minutia. There's other games within a game too. The fellowship travel, the hunt, the secrecy, the discovery, the corruption, the pros and cons of fellowship cohesion versus disbursement. Who leads the fellowship? Do you keep to the books or do you make your own little changes and whatever? Who sacrifices to keep the quest going with the corruption growing over time as you're being hunted? The more the fellowship disperses, the less potent Sauron's seeking skills become, the less he's able to just throw dice at it and try and find you and mess with you. Still, Sauron is never without options, and so that's there's always that tension, and it culminates in the climax of the final track on Mount Doom. You've got corruption abounding, this intentional slog that is so vivid in the books and the movies. It's fully evidenced here. There's a perfect feel of epic moments of agony, epic moments of victory, moments of tension, anticipation as forces are amassing and your options grow dimmer or brighter, depending on which side you're playing. Perfect card play. The events are contextual, they're meaningful, they're gut-wrenching, they're impacting, but they're not jaw-breaking for your enemy necessarily. The dual purpose means that you're always looking for not only one interesting decision, but two interesting decisions on, this could be useful in combat, but I could use this right now and gain that, but not have that for combat. It's beautiful. And the iconic characters are fully fleshed out, exactly as they should be on their cards. The companions act as they should. They have abilities that work as they should. They operate in tune with the way and the manner in which they conduct themselves in the books. And then their evolvement and maturation works just like the books and movies, with some flexibility. And then there's perfect dice play. Like, each dice represents not one action, but one category of actions. So it's not like you're stuck going, I can only do this, or that. It's like, I can only do this category of actions, that category. So it's less constricting, but it still feels that you don't have so freeform that, dice rolling becomes irrelevant of itself. You have backups. You've got the rings that you can use, but then you got to give them to your opponent if you're fellowship, or that you got to discard them. You got wild card dice. You've got cards that help mitigate that. Honestly, you're constantly, maximizing and reworking what you can do with what you've given, and then do your best within that scope. The asymmetry of dice means that the Fellowship really wants to maximize certain things. The Shadow has all the present conundrum of seeking the ring versus blasting armies, and so while they have more dice, they also have to split their focus. Well, so does the Fellowship peoples too, but they have more of a, like, what am I going to commit to? And there's always a possibility that they wind up rolling the dice and having things not work out the way that they wished. So, I did a review of Middle Earth Quest, which is another, 9 out of 10 game dealing with Middle Earth, but in a different facet, more of a role playing kind of thing than this, which is like taking on the whole big picture. And it's another, and it showed its age in a lot of respects, which I think could be redone in a better way. But this game, time has been kind to War of the Ring. I mean, there's an argument that, there have been arguments that this is just roll and move, there's too much dice, there's too much luck. I find that to be completely alien to my many, many experiences playing with this game. I mean, the length may be an issue, but I don't want Lord of the Rings in 30 months. I don't want Blitzkrieg or Slapjack. I want the epic experience. When I sit down for it, I want the epic experience. I watch Lord of the Rings full edition, biggest edition, extended version every single year at Christmas. I block out a whole day to do it. It's an epic experience that deserves an epic build-up, so I don't need to play this, 300 days a year to feel like it's great. I can play it 4 or 5 times a year and enjoy the snot out of it. So War of the Ring is identical in this respect to sort of my reverence to the movies and how I set them up and get them ready and just adore playing them. And then there's the extended, like if you're fortunate enough to have Lords of Middle Earth and the Warriors of Middle Earth, all you're doing is amping up the variety and the variability even more. In some ways, you give yourself some alternate ideas, like let's go way off the beaten path and change the playing field in a big way for Lords of Middle Earth or Warriors of Middle Earth. Let's take some of the cards, the event cards, and actually turn them into factions and use those and bring those in. So once you play it more and more and you play against experienced people, you definitely should consider adding those in, but you don't have to. So in summary, War of the Ring is utterly, completely, absolutely, perfectly brilliant. It is breathtaking scope. It is contextually sound with meaningful Lord of the Rings consistent choices, sprawling game map, and a tense war and a tense hide and seek in a familiar and beloved setting. From beginning to end, this is the most complete, epic, sweeping, panoramic game based on a theme of its time. This is Hall of Fame stuff. This is a 9.99 out of 10. And bringing it back again and playing it again for this review, like, why not make it a 10? Because, I always have my number one game of all time is Twilight Struggle. It's never, ever, nothing's come close except for War of the Ring. And in every regard and in every way, there's nothing I can say other than shower praises on this as the greatest thematic war game that's not Twilight Struggle of all time. So with that, thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.